Welcome to the Opinionated Benchwarmers Podcast, episode 186. Your Opinionated Benchwarmers back to do what we do best. That's discuss sports. Got both my brothers in here today. How y'all feeling?
Good, man. Good. As always, happy to do it. Happy to be with y'all, ready to rock this episode. We got so much to get into, brother. Let's do it.
Yeah, same man. Kind of dream time, dream scenario for a sports fan. You got the NFL draft rolling. Obviously, we're in the midst of the NBA playoffs, so it's a good time. And I'm not gonna hold it, man. I want us to go ahead and get into it. So let's roll.
Yeah, man. Appreciate all the love and support we've been receiving on YouTube. Make sure that you're subscribed. Just search Opinionated Benchwarmers, hit the bell for great content that we'll be releasing in the future. And make sure that you're subscribed to wherever you like to listen to your podcast at. Just search Opinionated Benchwarmers. It means so much. And if you feel so inclined to, share with a friend, as well as go ahead and leave a review. Give us that 5-star rating. That helps us a lot as well. Fellas, we'll jump into it. Just like you mentioned, NFL draft has gotten kicked off. As we record this on a Friday night, we want to give a disclaimer that we'll just be covering the first round because that's taking place last night. And then we'll get to the rest of it when we record again next week. And also, we got the NBA playoffs going on here. But what I wanted to start at real quickly is just to talk about how interesting this draft is. And, you know, I think that when I think about this draft and just how it went down, I think clearly after the first two picks, after Abdul Carter went to the Giants, we saw, I'm sorry, not number two, number three, Travis Hunter went number two. We saw after, those first three picks, it was kind of like a drop off in the talent, and it was kind of like a toss up going forward. And I think there's a lot of meat left on the bone as far as later talent. But we have to admit that there's a huge gap, and it's kind of weird with Cam Ward going number one and him not being the top story. Mostly, you don't hear anything about people talking about what is his future. Can he lead a franchise? You don't hear anything about that. I think it was all kind of covered up by either Shadeur not getting picked or Travis Hunter getting a haul. The Jags gave up a haul to get him. But what do you think about that? This is the first year I've seen where a first pick is just not the center of attention.
Yeah, I mean that's a great story, and I mean I didn't even think about that much, and we didn't discuss this beforehand, but he wasn't talked about much. It was kind of like, hey, we know he's going to be the first pick. We've been knowing it for about 3 weeks now. That he was going to be the guy. So it's just kind of like, okay, cool. They're taking the quarterback. I'm in the neighborhood of thinking they should have considered a player like Travis Hunter. I don't know. I'm not the one that's a true believer in Cam Ward just yet. I just don't feel like I've seen enough to be like, hey, he's that guy. He's gonna change that franchise. Could prove me completely wrong. But again, I agree with you. He didn't get much scrutiny. That was a weird thing. But we'll see. I guess that's good for him.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it'll kind of allow him to maybe float under the radar a little bit. I think it's kind of because, you really didn't come into this draft with a QB that was just, by far like, hey, this is a guy, this is a franchise changing type quarterback. We know Cam Ward from the college ranks, he kind of got a little bit in the Heisman discussion, but it wasn't like too, he was viewed as this bona fide guy that was a runaway, in college football. So, I think that's probably why he floated under the radar just a little bit. Now, as it relates to the Titans' decision, I'm still kind of in the class in the camp that, when you sit at that spot, if you're going to stay at number one and you have a shot at a QB, I think you have to kind of take your guy right there. You never really know when you're going to have that chance again, from a draft standpoint. And so, when you sit at that number one spot, it's kind of tough if you have that opportunity and you need it. So I can't fault them at all for taking Cam Ward there. I think it's just something that was kind of really known for weeks upon weeks going into the draft. And he isn't a guy that's just kind of like, setting the roof on fire or anything like that. So that's probably why it really got glossed over. But, I don't know, man, maybe it's just me. And not to say that I'm not into it, but I don't feel like this draft as a whole in the first round had really a lot of fireworks or a lot of buzz to it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
was
mean, my
just
point, to it is I feel like the same with Carlos is like I don't think Cam Ward, I don't see the number one potential player, and I think that this is probably one of the weakest quarterback classes that we've seen in a while. But Cam Ward, I will have to see it, but I honestly don't think it has a lot of bust potential to me, just because there's not a lot in Tennessee to begin with as far as talent around him. And I think he's going to a horrible situation that has been mismanaged for a couple years now. So it is an interesting pick, and like you were getting into with the round and the players and everything. To look at James Gladstone, and I know he comes from Rams. I know you know all about him, Los. He comes from the Rams under that umbrella as the new GM, the youngest GM in this draft, traded a first round pick, a future first round pick for for a player like Travis Hunter. That was insane to me to give up that much of a haul for a guy like Travis Hunter who wants to play both sides of the ball. And we know historically we hadn't seen it. Somebody that's able to consistently play like he did in college, both sides of the ball. That was a lot to give up. And I mean, it was a gutsy call. I got to give him that.
Well, I'll say this, Gladstone comes from the school of hard knocks of F those picks, and we know what that was a long thing of the Rams for a long time, giving up a bunch of picks for first rounders and all these different things. So he comes from that school of doing that. So that didn't really surprise me. I think he wanted to make a bold move. I think he wanted to put good players in there because nobody's doubting the talent of Travis Hunter. You know what I mean? I would say he was probably the number overall player in this draft just on talent alone. When you look at everybody else and how we talked about, there was no cream of the crop. There was maybe four cream of the crop players, maybe, right? You talking Abdul Carter, you talking Travis Hunter, you talking Genty, and then we can debate on the last player after that. But all these players, you talking those are the cream of the crop. Everybody else was kind of you getting the same type of player after pick 12, you're getting the same type of player all the way to pick 40. So I don't know. It was a lot to give up. I kind of like the bold move though. If you're going to come in there, you're going to make a statement, you're going to make the fan base excited. Why not get a player that you can play on both sides? You get a 2-for-1.
Yeah, yeah, no, I definitely, I think if he's your guy and you've identified that, man, you put all the chips in and you go after him, especially if he's a guy that truly are looking at playing both sides, especially from the offensive standpoint. One of the things you want to continue to do is to invest in what's surrounding your franchise cornerstone, in Trevor Lawrence. We've seen him be a little bit inconsistent, but one of the best things you can do for a young quarterback is to continue to surround him with weapons. We've even seen the Bengals take the route of making sure that they're paying Jamar Chase and paying T. Higgins to keep that around Joe Burrow. And so you look at what you already have there right now in Brian Thomas Jr. He looks like he's a bona fide guy that's going to be, a potential star for years to come. You add a playmaker and Travis Hunter around there as well too. And now you really could be cooking potentially there. And so I think that the investment was, of course, into Travis Hunter and just the Travis Hunter is a rare athlete. Like Travis Hunters don't just come around every year. So I think that it was an investment in that, but I think that it was also an investment in Trevor Lawrence to hope that he returns on kind of what they invested really years ago, in him. So
I'm about to do something that I never thought that I'd do or say on this podcast. I actually was very impressed with the Cleveland Browns front office for making this trade. I mean, to jump from two, jump back to five, only having to jump back to five, and then you're able to gain a couple. You gain a couple second round picks. I thought it was genius. To gain assets. I mean, I never thought I would say that they did it right this time. I mean, after the Deshaun Watson, probably one of the worst signed contracts in sports history, not NFL history, just sports history. For them to make a smart move like that, I got to give them credit, man. That was a good move to jump out of that when you know that there after Cam Ward, there's not a quarterback that you would feel comfortable taking it at that spot.
Yeah, I will have to agree with you. With a team that you know is not a player away, right? You know that they need multiple players. They need a quarterback over there. They're looking at Flacco right now, and I forget the Kenny Pickett, right? And we know what's going on with the old Texans quarterback right now. He's been hurt, Deshaun Watson. So, I mean, I would agree with you for them to gain assets. I will caution you on this though. They did the same thing back when Julio was available. They traded back, right, with the Falcons, and the Falcons moved up and got a generational talent, a future Hall of Famer, and the rest is history. All those picks that they got turned into like Brandon Weeden, a bunch of other guys that's in and out of the leagues. So I will just caution on that to say, yes, they got a haul, but they still have to nail those picks in order for it to be good. Otherwise, we're looking at this again as a Falcons Julio situation where you passed up a generational talent to get all these picks and you did nothing with them.
Well, look, I said they made a good move. I ain't say that they was gonna know what to do with it. You know what I'm saying? It's the difference. They'll find a way to mess it up. But Will Campbell, what a great story. I mean, the fourth pick going to the Patriots. I mean, I just gotta do that because we all LSU is near and dear to our hearts to talk about Will Campbell and the tears that he shed. It. I felt them. I would love an offensive tackle to say that I'm gonna die to protect the quarterback. I mean, that was a great moment. But Louisiana bred, straight out of Monroe, Mr. Louisiana, that was a good move for the Patriots. I think that you had to get some protection for your quarterback there.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Will Campbell is a guy that's tried and true. He's really been looked at for probably the last 2 years of the college ranks as, the top OT, the top offensive tackle, if not top three. I know that they throw in your boy Banks, that obviously I'm pretty sure you'll talk a little bit about later. But
Do we have to?
you're right. But I think that it was, honestly a good move. I know that there was some controversy leading up into it. People talked about the arm length and all those things of that sort. But at the end of the day, to me, if you look at the film, I think that Will Campbell is worthy of being taken, up at that spot in that region. And really that mentality, like that's been his mentality since he was a high school player. He's always kind of had that in him. That's why he was a five-star in the high school ranks. Came to LSU, was a day one starter at left tackle. Like who does that? But day one starter at left tackle, proved it for 3 years there, and now off to the NFL ranks. And I think that some of the scrutiny and some of the kind of doubters that he received throughout the process, that's going to fuel a guy like Will Campbell. And I think you will see him show up on the next level because of that.
Yeah, man. I like the pick. I like what he's gonna do, and I mean, he's been starting since he was a freshman. When he first stepped on campus, I mean, as a left tackle, that's pretty extraordinary. So, man, moving along, man. I mean, it's so much we could talk about it. Again, I want to set a disclaimer. We're just covering the first round because we're recording here on a Friday night. You'll hear this tomorrow on a Saturday. However, we'll recover the rest of the draft and our thoughts on the overall draft on a later episode next week. But as we continue to kind of dissect the first round, I want to go round table style. Everybody's answer is probably going to be different, but I wanted to kind of discuss which player went to the team that you think fits the best, and what was your favorite pick for a team in the draft outside of your team? Because we'll get to our teams in a moment. But who wants to go first on that one?
I, I'll take that one. I'll just say, let's talk about Genty at six, right? It was it matched both need and good player, right? At good value at getting him at six. There was rumors before the draft, and even we can talk about this now publicly. We was all both in trade discussions in our dynasty, and y'all both told me the same thing. Was like, hey, there's somebody the Bears trying to come up and get this guy. I don't want to make a deal with you with DeAndre Swift. So I was like, all right, cool, whatever. They ended up not happening. He went to the Raiders, and I would say that's a perfect match when you look at a Pete Carroll who's been a run first type of guy, who's had the Marshawn Lynch, and now you got your guy over there where they had pretty much dust at the running back position. And now you get this guy that you know for sure is going to be the guy there. There's no competition there. I mean, again, there's still rounds 2 through 7 to go. But even if they draft a running back later on, I'm not worried about anybody taking anything from this guy. So I love that standpoint. This kid, Genty kid, is a military kid. That kind of hit home to me. So that kind of speaks discipline from that standpoint. He's traveled around the world. I mean, he's just, again, a grade A example of like a hard worker that showed up, and he's a special. And we can even say, I know a lot of people be scared to say this, he's a generational talent. He finished only second to Barry Sanders in total yardage in college, and so we can say those things about him because he was that good. He was that guy, and I think personally he should have probably been the Heisman Trophy winner.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that you honestly nailed it with the Genty pick. I'm very high on Genty as well. Just like you were saying, generational. I was going to echo the same sentiment. So I think that was a good one. I think another one that stuck out to me, and I don't know how we keep letting them do it with the Philadelphia Eagles. How do we let them get Campbell? I think that honestly, like, how do we let him slide to 31 for them to be able to have a chance to go and get him? And once again, now you see the Eagles. drafting another dynamic linebacker. This is a guy that really on probably draft boards could have really went in the top half of the first round if we really be
Yeah.
honest about it. From the traits, athleticism that he possesses, and so now you see him landed in Philly, and it's kind of like, man, they've done it again. And so when you look at the first round, and like you said, looking at teams outside of the scope of us, I think that Philly nailed it once again, man.
Yeah, I work with, I'm on the East Coast, so I work with a lot of Philly fans, and I joked with them yesterday before the draft at work. I was like, man, I was like, all right, so which defensive player is going to slide on the radar and y'all are going to get this year? As a joke, and then they end up with Jaya Campbell, who's a very dynamic linebacker, Alabama at a 31st pick. It's ridiculous. I like those two. The one I'm going to go with, which I knew it would happen, was Malachi Starks. I thought that Malachi, honestly, in my opinion, was a top 10 talent at safety coming out of Georgia. Just from a measurable aspects, he's my favorite prospect that I researched in the draft that I liked a lot. And I think that he's a perfect fit with what the Ravens are trying to do. The Ravens are needing to get back to that defensive scheme. We saw them get knocked out the playoffs again, and a lot of it was because of a questionable secondary help. Well, they got a guy there that they can probably just plug and play right there. I really like the pick for him. And as a bonus one, I'm gonna go. I'm surprised y'all didn't do this, but Omari and Hampton going to the Chargers that's ridiculous. That is ridiculous. The Chargers was able to do it. I don't know how Omarion was able to get to the 22nd pick, but we know the Chargers like to run the ball, and we saw what they did. If you're looking for fantasy implications here, that's a guy that's gonna be a workhorse. He's gonna be. We know that they love to run the ball. He'll be a great Bragg. I thought he was. I thought the gap between him and Genty was closer than what people like to admit. Even though I agree with you guys that Genty is generational, but Mario Hampton to the Chargers, man, that's just nuts to me, man.
I would agree with you. That is a good pickup. I mean, even though we're dealing with Najee Harris there, whatever. He's going to eventually, the cream of the crop is going to rise. I really believe that. But I want to ask y'all this, before we wrap up the draft stuff, as we go through 2 through 7, right? These next couple days before we record again, who's the player y'all really watching to land somewhere? Who is somebody you like? Okay, cool. I can't wait to see where they go. It could be any position. It can be quarterback, it could be running back, it could be receiver.
At this
Oh,
point, I'm ready to see where Shadeur is going to go, and I think that's a
Yeah,
topic within itself. For
yeah,
him to go
yeah.
1 through 32, with all these teams needing quarterbacks, including my team, which we'll get to in a moment, talking about our teams and how they're performing in the draft. But as we record here and just covering the first round, I got to give another disclaimer for anybody that just peeked in on this segment. We're recording the first round, recording on a Friday night. We only got the first round to dissect right now, but we'll record the rest of the draft next week. But yeah, I mean, I think Shador, I think he's talented. I thought that honestly there was a closer gap between him and Cam. I thought that he would be a great, awesome fit for my Saints. Honestly, playing in the dome, playing in good weather in Carolina and Tampa Bay. I think that Kellen Moore has a plan, and I gotta lean on him because he has had history with great quarterbacks like Jalen Hurts, and he's worked with Prescott, who's put up great numbers over their career. So I gotta lean on him, and he's gonna go get the guy. But to me, Shador, I'm looking forward to seeing where he lands at. I think he'll be off the board pretty soon. Probably, if I had to guess, he got to be off the board by tonight as we recording this on Friday night. So we'll see where he lands. But yeah, I'll go Shador there.
yeah. I guess I'm gonna probably steal Los's thunder a little bit with this one, but bringing in another quarterback, Jalen Milroe has been a guy that Los
Oh
has
my
been
God.
on for a
Los could
while.
talk about Jalen Miro for
Yeah.
for a whole episode.
Right. But I think it's going to be intriguing to see, who's going to think that, Jalen Milroe is a guy that they can mold into potentially a starting quarterback for them. We know that he, possesses the athletic traits and things of that nature, but we know that he's been a little bit of an inconsistent passer. I mean, if we just be frank about it. And so seeing who feels that they can maybe kind of get them within their system and can, refine those things. Maybe ones that kind of looked at a Jalen Hurts when Jalen Hurts was coming out, or something of that sort. So I think that it would be kind of intriguing to see because I feel like there's kind of a little bit potentially of a wide range of where Milroe could go. Like he's a guy that somebody could think that close to the top end of that second round, but he's a guy that can also, I wouldn't be surprised to see drop to the bottom of the third or fourth round. Like to me,
Yeah,
there's a
easily,
lot of very variables that are there. So that's why it's
easily.
intriguing.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think those both are good. You did kind of steal my thunder a little bit. That's okay. But the two I got is the both of the Ohio State running backs, right? I think the top of that second round, we're gonna see those guys go off. I mean, we look at
Travion Henderson.
Yeah.
Travion Henderson
And
and Quinshawn
Quinshawn Judkins. Junkins.
Junkins, both of those guys, right? They both can be the guys for an offense, right? You got one with Henderson is not the biggest back, but he's one of the best pass blocking backs in the league, which means he's going to be on the field. Then you got Christian Junkins, who can be the guy who showed that he's faster. That combine 40 run was faster than I think a lot of people expected. So looking at those two guys is going to be fun to see where they land because I think you have some running back needy teams at the top of the second round. And I think they're going to go pretty quickly, which is funny because we're probably about to find this out in the next hour or
Yeah.
so what's going to happen. But fun to
Yeah.
look back on anyway.
Another disclaimer. We're recording on a Friday night before the second round has started. So we'll record and dissect the rest of the draft on next week's episode. So don't think that we outdated.
Quick question,
Ramon, yes,
Los. Who would you take out of those two? Who you taking?
Give me I mean landing spot. Talk to me next week. I think landing spot's gonna play a huge part, right?
Oh,
Because
you copping out.
I'm not because I think it's just that close in the situation, just because those running backs both do something totally different. But I like Henderson's explosion, though. I'll say that because he's a home run hitter, a
He
true
a
home
home
run
run.
hitter.
Yeah, he a home run. If I had to pick right now, I'm leaning towards Henderson, but I love Judkins as well. So I agree with you. It is pretty close here. But man, what another surprising thing that happened. We didn't talk about it enough, but it was the Giants. The Giants, they early on in the draft, they passed on the quarterback, and then in that late of the first round, they traded back into the first round, and they ended up grabbing Jackson Dart.
Yeah.
Another miss by these guys, man. I don't see it from Jackson Dart, and I mean that brings back to the Shadeur thing. Like, I mean, Shadeur carried that team. Shadeur led them to a ranked record. Shadeur had the worst offensive line in college football this past season. And here, Jackson Dart had millionaires playing for him. If you look at their NIL valuation for that squad last year, it was in the millions, top millions. Essentially, Jackson Dart was playing with millionaires, and we saw what happened towards the end of the season. Ole Miss fell apart, and yet the Giants felt the need to trade into the first round to grab Jackson Dart. It makes no sense to me.
Yeah, no, I see the argument. I mean, I think what I saw and what reports are saying was Jackson Dart was at the ball pick. He was that was his guy, right? And then you also got to think about the Eli Manning Ole Miss connection too as well. Those type of things play a part. When these owners and when these GMs and when these head coaches get set on the guys, sometimes they're like, hey, if I'm gonna go down with this ship, I'm going to go down with my guy, right? We saw the reports about Sanders and about how the privilege and getting along with teammates, all those different things, right? Whether that's true to that or not, nobody really put a name to that. So I mean, I think that does concern teams with Sanders, right? He's always played for his dad. He's always been in a situation where he's kind of had it his way. Teams are like, hey, you're going to be a rookie quarterback. We're going to do it this way. They uncomfortable with that. And just the notion of who his dad is too plays a part in that, if we being honest. So again, sometimes that may bring extra scrutiny that a head coach that's in the hot seat, right? All these head coaches that would in these situations to get a quarterback aren't in the best situations where they don't want to bring in extra scrutiny from the outside. So I think a lot of these teams are just scared off. Not from a talent wise that you were mentioning, Rob. I think he has all the talent to be right there with those guys. But because the extra stuff that comes with it, they're just like, hey, I'd rather just stay away.
I think that's weak though,
That's
honestly. Because I mean, before he got to Jackson State, no one knew who Jackson State was. We knew because we're from Southern University and we know about the SWAC. He put Jackson State on the map, him and Travis
Yeah.
Hunter. And he did the same thing with Colorado. From one of the worst, absolute worst, hard teams that no one ever wanted to watch to everybody watching the game. I don't see it's the NFL. He wear chains. He's his dad. He's flashy, but nobody says that about Aaron Rodgers. The Steelers are holding their whole draft plan on drafting a quarterback off a washed quarterback, holding them hostage and playing and keeping their fingers crossed that Aaron Rodgers come out of retirement and sign with them. Don't I mean I'm not talking to you, but I'm just like that's bogus to me.
Yeah, no,
Yeah, I agree.
yeah, I was gonna say the same thing. I have the same sentiments, honestly. Like, if that's gonna be something that detracts you from getting a guy that's really honestly a better fit for your team and is gonna be a better prospect, like to me, you shouldn't be in that spot as a GM or as an owner of a team if that
Yeah.
kind of stuff is gonna be what causes you not to draft this guy. This is a guy that, like you said, of course, has an NFL pedigree. We understand his dad and everything his dad does, but also too, this is a guy that is a student to Tom Brady. Like, people don't mention that part as well too. Like, this is the guy Shadeur that knows the game, knows it well. He hasn't been in honestly an ideal situation just yet because, as y'all already talked about and alluded to, at Colorado, there was never a time where he felt that he could just sit in the pocket and really dissect the defense. Like, he was a guy that was always had to consistently move and manipulate a pocket. Like, he's to me that has shown that he has the tools to be able to succeed at the next level. And so to see him consistently slide, I wasn't really a big fan of seeing that. And also too, I think that there's going to be some teams that end up regretting that because I think it's going to continue to put a chip on his shoulder. We already know the type of competitor that Shador is, and I think that this is going to put him into overdrive. Really, it's going to be something that to me is kind of a Lamar Jackson esque type of deal where he sat there pick after pick, saw people scrutinize him and say, "You're not gonna be this, you're not gonna be that." All right, I'll show you. I'll prove it to you.
Well, I will say, as it was recording this again, actually the second round just got started at 7 p.m. Eastern time on a Friday night. As we record this when you hear this, but my Saints got to stop the seventh pick in the second round. So maybe, maybe we'll pick Shador and do the right thing. But I doubt it because we don't do things like that. We're not that smart. But anyway, y'all talked about my Saints. How do you think your team is doing so far in the draft?
I would say my team didn't make a pick. So my team traded out and got a 2026 first round pick. So I can't judge off my draft. And obviously, for new listeners, I'm a Rams fan. But it's been talked about that the Rams got away with highway robbery with getting a first round pick just to move back 20 spots, And so a lot of people are questioning what in the world are Falcons doing? You make that type of trade up for a quarterback, not for a defensive end, or outside linebacker. You don't do that. So again, I'm interested to see how they use this pick today. It'll be nice to see if they go and get my guy Milrow because everybody know how high I am on Milrow if he get in the right situation. Again,
Is it because he had
right
two historic
situation.
games against our LSU Tigers that you
I
so
mean, I
marvel
seen it
about this
first.
guy?
I've seen it firsthand how he just wrecked us. So I think I trust Sean McVay would get that boy right. But anyway, so I'm ready to see what we do second round.
Yeah, I would say for my team, honestly, I was good with the pick. Obviously, we sat at the 14th pick and went and grabbed Tyler Warren from Penn State. To me, who was the best tight end in the draft. I know that he got
He
picked
was
as the
mocked to
second
y'all
tight end.
all draft, brother. All draft that was the
Yeah,
mock to y'all, which is
and I
crazy.
and I think that he's a guy that creates that safety net for Anthony
Yeah.
Richardson. If Anthony Richardson, of course, continues to be the guy going forward, but I think that he creates that safety net. And I think the thing that you look at as well too is the way in which tight ends recently have acclimated to the league has been a quicker kind of acclimation and learning curve as in years past. I mean, we saw obviously what Brock Bowers did last year. We saw the year before that what Sam Laporta was able to do. We know what Trey McBride has been able to do in acclimating to Arizona. So you're starting to kind of see this momentum and movement to the tight end position and them becoming guys that's really a top two receiver, honestly, on the team. And so I think that Anthony Richardson, as he continues to develop as a passer, needs kind of that safety net, that safety valve right there. And I think that we got the best tight end in the draft. So I'll take the pick, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, my New Orleans Saints had the ninth pick. We took Kelvin Banks, which is a really talented offensive tackle out of Texas. I what do I start here? I mean, I think that I tell you, it's like I'm telling you, I'm thirsty, but you give me food. Like that's cool. Like I'll eat, but I need something to drink, right? And I think that's what this pick was. Obviously, it feels a need. But again, when you have Shadeur Sanders sitting there at 9, I thought that would have probably been a better move, a more impactful move. But what do I know? We hadn't chose a quarterback in over 50 years of the franchise existence. The last first rounder quarterback we took was actually Arch Manning's great grandfather. So so it just kind of puts into what how they look into things and everything. So overall, I'm not mad at it because we do need our offensive line, and that does help us in a sense. But I'm looking forward to it. I mean, it's just the first round. So we'll see what happens after tonight. We'll talk about it next week. But we have some opportunity, and I'm looking forward to seeing what we're doing. They still got a plethora of good running backs still on the board, like Trayvon Henderson and Judkins, like we mentioned. You got Caleb Johnson still out there. So it's going to be interesting to see where some of these guys fall. You still got, I ain't even talked about the receivers. So let's talk about some basketball here. I mean, our Lakers look pretty darn good in game two. The series is 1-1. We're in Minnesota tonight at 9:30 Eastern time. I'll be awake to see it. Hopefully, old folks gonna take a nap before we watch the game, but I'll be up. Uh, what do y'all expect to see tonight, and what we need to do to take control of this series?
Yeah, I think this is going to be a big night to speak to the Lakers and see where their maturity is as a team, right? Can you go into the house of Minnesota and make it a game, right? Can you make it a game? Can you make this? Can you steal home court advantage back, right? You got two games to do that, so it's going to be interesting to see how they respond. We were actually more physical game two. See how they respond to that physical. We threw different defensive coverages at Anthony Edwards. How does he respond to that now? Is he still confused, or does he make the right reads and do the drive and kick? Their game plan game one was drive and kick. Game two, the Lakers said, "Okay, we're gonna let you have a drive. We're not gonna give you these open threes, right?" And so that kind of threw off their rhythm. So I'm interested to see how we rock it and how we adjust and how we can still be a physical playoff team and still a home and still a away game.
Yeah, I think the thing that I'm looking for, in addition to everything Los just mentioned, is really are the Lakers gonna finally give a good offensive output? You know, you looked at last game, you really came out first quarter of that game. You know, I think put up 34 points in the first quarter, and then really tailed off the rest of the game. You know, I think that in consecutive games, it's been 94, 95 points, 94 points, and I think that one of the things that I'm looking to see is that I think that maybe they were getting a little bit too caught up in that whole Rudy Gobert switch situation, switch baiting Rudy Gobert,
Mm.
and then taking him ISO ball one on one instead of using that sometimes to create opportunities for others. You know, it doesn't have to just be a jump shot every time you get Rudy Gobert. I think from a statistical standpoint, I think that it's been held to 4 out of 12, as far as shots. So really, honestly, Rudy hasn't been performing as badly as people want to say in those situations. And honestly, Lakers got to shoot the ball better from the perimeter. They have to shoot the ball better from the perimeter, open up some driving lanes. So I'm really looking to see, can the Lakers play better offensively? Of course, like Los mentioned, they made the defensive adjustments, but this team has not clicked offensively. And even Austin Reeves and some of the open looks that he's gotten so far this series has not been clicking.
Yeah, I got two things for you guys. Is I want to test that shoulder of Anthony Edwards. So I want to put him in some ball screen actions. I want to put him in situations to where he has to test out to see how healthy he really is. Because I think that that's really where we sit at right now. He is the motor of that team, and I think that if he's not at 100%, I think we got a good chance to run away with the series. And then secondly, Ramon kind of mentioned in it, Austin Reeves. I think we gotta get him going, and he has to get going. And here with the first round and us having this is being the third game of the first round, the time is now because the opponents that we'll face as the playoffs progress, if we are lucky enough to get past Minnesota, I mean, it's not going to get any easy. So he needs to figure this out. I think that the pace is bothering him. He's not able to freelance like he did in the regular season. Defense is starting to tighten up. Coverage is starting to lean towards him more, and he has to figure it out. And I think that all the great players do. I have confidence that he will. Hopefully, we're going to need him going forward. But I think that those are two things that I'll be keeping a close eye out on. And then news came out that Ja Morant, which I think that they should have took that series off TV 2 games ago, but the Thunder are up 3-0 or at this point, and Ja fell on his hip, and they already said he's out for game four. So that's gonna be a sweep. The Thunder is basically got a bye week, a bye series. But the Nuggets and Clippers, real quickly, That's the most interesting one in the first round outside of the Rockets and Golden State. But the Nuggets and Clippers, I think me and Ramon, we said that the Clippers were gonna win, and then I think Los went with the Nuggets. Los, how you feeling about those Nuggets right now, real quickly?
I'm happy. I am actually happy that I'm wrong. I am really happy that I'm wrong. Again, still a long series, but they're
You
not
jinxed
looking
them. It was a
healthy.
little jinx.
Yeah,
Hey, it was a
a
little
little
jinx
reverse
behind
jinx
you
there.
there. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I've never seen Jokic that demonstrative, but if we ever question does he care about the game, we're seeing it. He cares. He cares. The no, like you don't cuss out your coach and your team and try to coach the team up if you don't care. So that's really nice to see the passion in the game there. And then you got the Rockets and the Warriors here. We got a tied series 1-1 here. Uh, the Rockets, Jalen Green kind of woke up this last game, and he's extremely talented. It's been really a when he's playing like that, if he can do that consistently, I think Golden State might have some issues,
Yeah.
especially with Jimmy Graham. I mean,
Jimmy,
Jimmy Graham,
Saints fan, always.
Jimmy Butler.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jimmy Butler. With his injury going on, I mean, it's gonna be interesting to see. I thought this series would be done, but it looked like it might be. We might be here for a while.
Yeah, no, I agree. And like you said, a lot of it is going to come down to what happens with Jimmy Butler. If Jimmy Butler is compromised, that completely compromises what the Warriors are. And it, to me, kind of maybe tips the scales on the side of the Houston with that series. So it'll be interesting to see how that is going forward.
Yep. So the playoffs been interesting. We'll keep going. We'll keep covering it here and there. I know that was a quick, but it's all about the NFL draft right now. Again, another disclaimer: covering the first round as we record on a Friday night. The second round began tonight. We'll cover the rest of the NFL draft next week on a later episode. The only way you can do that, the only way you can get notified to hear that content if you subscribe to the podcast. Opinionated Benchwarmers, wherever you like to listen to your podcast for. Guys, we have 11,000 subscribers on YouTube. If you want to be one of them, make sure that you subscribe to us on YouTube. Opinionated Benchwarmers. Make sure that you hit the bell and get notified when we drop this wonderful content. Until next time, guys, we are out of here.
Later.